In this video, we're going to have a look at how do we solve linear equations to find an unknown variable where that a variable appears on both sides of the original equation. So if we've got an equation that has an unknown variable on both sides, the first step we need to do is to move the unknown variables onto one side and then solve the equation by rearranging and doing our inverse operations. Now our inverse operations are when we're adding, the inverse is subtracting. When we are subtracting, the inverse is adding. When we are multiplying, the inverse is dividing. When we're dividing, the inverse is multiplying. When we're squaring a number, the inverse is square rooting it. And when we're square rooting a number, the inverse is multiplying. So let's have a look at some examples of linear equations with unknown variables on both sides. So in the first example, it is going to be 6a plus 7 is equal to 13 plus 7a. Now the first step I need to do to solve this linear equation is to have a look at where my unknown variables are. I've got 6a on the left-hand side and 7a on the right-hand side. Now what I want to do is I want to move them both over to one side. So to do that, I want to get rid of 6a on my left-hand side. And to do that, I need to do the opposite, which is subtract 6a. So then I need to do the same on the right-hand side, subtract 6a. So my expression then becomes 7 is equal to 13 plus a. Now that I've only got one unknown variable on one side of my equation, I can go ahead and solve. So to get a by itself, I need to get rid of the plus 13. So the opposite of plus 13 is to minus 13. What I do to the right-hand side, I need to do to the left-hand side. So my equation then becomes 7 minus 13 is equal to a. So negative 6 is equal to a. So by rearranging my original equation to have the unknown variables moved over to one side, I can work out that my value for a is equal to negative 6. So let's have a look at the second example, which is 13 minus 4d is equal to 1 minus d. Now the first step I need to do is to move my unknown variables across onto one side. And at the moment I can see that I've got negative 4d on one side and negative d on the other side. So I want to move it all over. So my 4d gets moved over to my right hand side. So to do that, I need to do the opposite of subtracting 4d, which is to plus 4d. What I do to the left hand side, I do to the right hand side. So my equation then becomes 13 is equal to 1 minus d plus 4d. So 13 is equal to 1 plus 3d. Now I continue to try and get d by itself. The next step is to remove the plus 1, and the opposite of plussing 1 is subtracting 1. What I do to the right hand side, I need to do to the left hand side. So that becomes 13 minus 1 is equal to 3d. To get d by itself, I need to get rid of the multiply by 3. And the opposite of multiplying by 3 is dividing by 3. What I do to the right-hand side, I need to do to the left-hand side. So 12 divided by 3 is equal to d. So 4 is equal to d. So let's have a look at another example where I have unknown variables on both sides of my equation. So in this example, my equation is negative 7m minus 3m plus 2 is equal to negative 8m minus 8. Now the first step before I move my unknown variables to one side is I want to simplify my original equation by collecting like terms. My like terms are negative 7m and 3m. So adding them together, I get negative 10m plus 2 is equal to negative 8m divided by 8. So now that I've simplified, I can go ahead and move my unknown variables to one side. And I have got a negative 10m on one side and a negative 8m on the other side. So I want to move my negative 10m over to the right hand side. To do that, the opposite of subtracting 10m is plus 10m. So what I do to the left hand side, I need to do to the right hand side. So my equation becomes 2 is equal to negative 8m plus 10m minus 8. So 2 is equal to 2m minus 8. Now to work out my value of m, I need to get m by itself. So my next step is to remove the minus 8. The opposite of minus 8 is the plus 8, which I need to do to both sides. So 2 plus 8 is equal to 2m. And to get m by itself, I need to get rid of the times it by 2. And that is done by dividing by 2. So divide the right hand side by 2, divide the left hand side by 2. So 10 divided by 2 is equal to m. So 5 is equal to m. So by simplifying my original equation, moving my unknown variables to one side, and then applying a series of inverse operations, I can determine that m is equal to 5 in my original equation.